Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, thank you for joining us on our first episode of Ramblers. We have a very special Father's Day special here for you today.
No, Zach, this is definitely Memorial Day, not Father's Day.
We're going to be celebrating with a wonderful father-son duo video game. We are touching on God of War for the PlayStation 4.
This is not Father's Day.
And we'll get on our Father's Day special if Aaron stops interrupting me.
Well, okay, first of all, Zach, I am not interrupting you. I'm correcting you, boy.
Did you just boy me?
I did, boy, and I am the daddy.
I'm the daddy here. Boy.
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 Oh, God, that's him.
He said daddy. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us here on Ramblers. It is our first official video. The reason I say official is because we do have a special release that is out there for our patrons on Patreon where you can check us out. So make sure you swing by that link I'll add below to join us on Patreon, become part of our exclusive community. Super excited. If you don't know by now, anytime Zach and I talk about anything, we can't keep our mouths shut, so it is always filled with spoilers.
Well, then again, I think you kind of know what you're getting into. This is a God of War review. We did not put it to spoiler-free review. So if you haven't played the game yet and you at all care about spoilers, having things ruined for you, frankly, you should be turning this off right now. But
this is your countdown, basically, to do it. I'll start it right there. So make sure you're turning this off if you haven't done it. Look, these things don't go bad. So, you know, you can always come back and join us later for a fantastic review. So anyways, so we're going to jump into this. Obviously, we want to talk about God of War. We're going to review God of War PS4 and kind of what it's culminated to be. Let me ask you this. So they announced it, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Something like that.
At E3?
A few years ago, right.
What did you expect?
Honestly, I was not... Okay, that'd be a lie. I was about to say I was not excited at all. The part of me that really enjoyed playing the God of War series, I mean, you get that excitement. Like, if you've been a Mario fan your whole life and they announce a new Mario game, obviously you've got some excitement for it. However, as I've told pretty much everybody that'll listen to me, including people that have no interest in video games whatsoever, God of War 3 ruined the whole series for me. Mm-hmm. 1 was terrific. I absolutely loved the game. 2, I don't like as much as 1, but I still enjoyed it. By 3, I absolutely hated the Kratos character. Mm-hmm. I felt it was one of the biggest examples of just very shallow and just it angered me to watch him. It was just a total testosterone monkey. I mean, really, that's the best way I can describe it. The character was doing stupid things, was ruining everybody's lives, all to win a pissing contest. Mm-hmm. So when I heard of the new God of War coming out, that part of my brain got activated a little bit. I said, you know, I was kind of done with this series after 3. But then I also kind of thought, you know, maybe they'll undo a little of that. They've had time to write this. Writing in all of our shows, series, games that have been resurrected after long hiatuses. Hiati? I don't know how you say that word. They are better in a lot of ways. I know people have nostalgia and will argue with me, but the writing gets better. We have learned new tricks. We have learned from our mistakes. So that's a very long way of saying I was excited. How about yourself?
Oh, no, I definitely was. I'll never forget the E3 where they opened with it, the live orchestration of the music and stuff. So I was excited. I'm on the same page, right? By the time we got to 3, I enjoyed the gameplay for the hack and slash that it was, the button mashing, brutal ass kicking game that it was. Did not care at all about the character. Right. By 3, I wasn't story driven by that game. It was simply I just wanted to beat the hell out of some shit, plain and simple.
Sure.
And Kratos was the badass to truly give you the power to do it. So that kind of throws us into what the PS4 version of God of War is, right? I mean, we're done with the Greek mythology. We've left that behind, and we land into a whole new one with the Norse mythology.
Absolutely.
Which to me was kind of an interesting place to take us.
I never imagined them doing that sort of thing with it, and in fact, I don't even know that I understood what I was looking at right away. I just saw they were making a new God of War game, and he had an axe, and it wasn't until I watched it a couple of times and I realized they brought him into a whole different realm. He's gonna go. He ruined Greece enough.
right. I would say that's off the map.
Now he's gonna go ruin the Norselands. And I have to say, I can't pick the words. I've been Sorry, I've been mulling this one over. I've played through the whole game, just in one big shot over the last week to get ready for this review, and I have so many thoughts. The game has been tremendous for me. It exceeded every single expectation I could have set. Redeemed every single bit of ill will I had towards the series at any point for any reason, and I could explode in word vomit all over the place. So why don't you pick a topic for me? Let's talk.
Yeah,
about
so
that.
let's jump into kind of talking about. I really want to talk. I really will lend the time we have. I want to kind of dissect this game, right?
Sure.
So this game to me was a completely different experience than any previous God of War.
Right.
Right. I mean, starting off the top, and it was. The pacing of this game was interesting, right? And they set the pacing right from the go. It wasn't slow, but it was methodical. You know,
Sure.
to me, I felt this game had this great combination of storytelling with action in it. And I mean, anyone who's played it now knows the game ends up being kind of an open sandbox, right?
Yeah.
But it takes almost 2 hours plus to get there, which to me I think was great because it was a very different take on this. Again, you're not running around with throwing and the
Right.
speed of battle that you once had, right?
Well, the game simultaneously allows you to explore more and also does less. It's sort of weird. They obviously retooled the entire engine. God of War 1, 2, and 3 it had the fixated camera, and it had a specific angle for each scene, which I really appreciated that. I'll be honest with you, I did not care a lot for when I first started doing it, the combat in this game, because I could only have the over-the-shoulder view of a few enemies at a time, and the God of War series always gave you a look of everything that was around you, something I'd gotten used to, and it also had platforming elements to it. Right away, you probably noticed there's no jump button in God of War. We have lost the ability to jump, except in the cutscene. You know, we are the all-powerful God who can leap mountains, but I'm not allowed to do it. You know,
Right.
Kratos does not feel like jumping. It's just, you know, he's old. The knees are going out.
That's right.
I felt the pacing hits a very early crescendo, and then it kind of plateaus a bit. Not in a bad way, because I mean I tore through the game constantly and loved it. Basically, we really want to go into the plot a lot.
Yeah, let's do
sure.
it.
So I mean, first off, how did you feel about this? Game absolutely starts with you chopping down trees, and it's Kratos, so of course he's just over the shoulder, one-handing them. To cremate your wife. And the game purposely, obviously, gives you no information about this wife. You see Kratos, you meet his son, and you get to see her body wrapped up in rags waiting to be burned.
Right, and you learn that because when you chop down that first tree, it's got a handprint on it, right? And you learned fairly early on that his wife put the handprints on those trees.
Specifically marked every tree she wanted, right?
Right. Which makes you wonder, because again, that's it. That's the information you're giving. You're like, and it really got me going. I'm like, who is she? Like, why was she so important that he found her and, started a family with her, but that she's able to mark trees. And you find out pretty early on, too, that the axe he has was a gift from her. It was hers originally.
Right.
Right? So who is this woman that wielded this incredible, powerful tool prior to him?
Well, you obviously don't get to meet her. Instead, you get to meet his wiry, squirrely little son,
Yes.
Atreus, who obviously the dynamic is set up right away. He is nothing like his father.
No.
And his father Kratos seems to resent that. Now, something I want to touch on really quick as we elaborate. The game was spectacular at setting different moods at specific parts in the games.
Yes.
So for this whole beginning stretch, as you're learning the characters, I hated Kratos. I was like, you haven't grown whatsoever. You're still that awful, rage-filled ape that I couldn't stand by the end of God of War 3. And he kind of is. He's ordering around this. I know it's a 9-year-old who's the voice actor. We call Atreus 9, 8, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I would definitely say he was around that age.
Berating this small child like he's just a grown adult who's being lazy. Like, how come you're not carrying one of the logs? Like, because he's a kid. Of course he's not doing that.
Why aren't you carrying something that will crush you?
It's the ultimate. Every time you felt like you just let your dad down because you weren't the sports hero he was, you get to watch that for hours, and it's heartbreaking for me. Now, when I first saw that, I thought, you're the worst father in the entire world. Don't you know what it's like to be a dad? So, something that was big for me was watching him interact with his son. it brought back like every single dynamic every person has ever dealt with your father, you not being the sports hero he wanted, not being the boxer he wanted, just you know, constantly feeling like a letdown, like as if this 8-9-year-old boy could possibly be the son of the God of War. And I really hated that at first. I kept thinking, Kratos, you are the worst father in the universe. I mean, isn't some of this instinctual? Something that Christopher Judge had said, the voice actor for Kratos, when he was pressed about this, it really resonated with me. And he said, how can you be a father if you yourself were never fathered? It's sort of, you know, it calmed me down a bit from that perspective. Kratos never had anybody really raise him. All he's ever known is maim, kill, burn, murder, slaughter, punch, and now he's raising a little boy. Right,
but I mean, if you take that into context too with the cultures, right? That was the Spartan way, right? That was the Greek way. That's how boys were raised, as they were basically ripped from their families at a young age, put through a military sort of training camp. The strongest survived, the weakest died. I mean, that's how you were raised. So I see where you're coming from, and there was times, don't get me wrong, where it just pissed me off, but of how he would treat him. But at the same time, like, he's pulling from his own background, like, and I kind of liked that. That take on it, where it's like, well, he wouldn't know how to do this because, like you said, it wasn't done for him. You know, he's trying to raise Atreus in a completely different culture where they're not raised to be killers.
Well, so from there too, you start meeting, and this is probably my favorite part of this game. In God of War 1, 2, 3, obviously almost none in 1, there are some side characters. They provided a little bit of dialogue here and there. They set some things up. In my opinion, Pandora was probably the closest thing to a really meaningful long-term side character that we saw in God of War 3. Maybe Gaia in 2. But you start running into, as the game goes on, Brock and Sindri, the dwarves, will craft your gear for you, the bickering dwarves. By the way, Sindri is my favorite character in the entire game. And I'll touch on that why is... You run into Brock and Sindri, the dwarves. You do meet the World Serpent, who does interact with you, has a couple of conversations. You get Mimir,
the head.
This is embarrassing. I know he's a head. Like, he wasn't a god, was he?
No. He was an advisor to the gods.
Thank you. Because I knew either way, you get to free him from his imprisonment with, as he called it, some costs. You get a severed head following you around, giving you advice to the game, which. It's a concept that actually has been done before, but I didn't care. It was great.
I like the way they tackled it and stuff, and I know we're going to get more into this when we get into characters, because we're still kind of talking about the plot from beginning, middle, end, but I do agree, like, as you kind of get some of these characters involved in your life, particularly Mimir. See, that was my favorite, to be entirely honest. I thought he was fun, he was charming, he was straightforward. I just loved it. I loved the character in general, so he was a lot of fun for me. And I love him educating us through his stories. But
you're right, I did get off track.
That's all right.
The main plot of the whole game was after, obviously, we've cremated Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother. The main mission of the game, far and wide, is to just bring her ashes to the highest mountain in all the realms, and that was a very important distinction there, and scatter her ashes to the winds. So, that, as they know it, the highest peak in all the realms is the summit of what was the mountain? They just call it the summit.
They call it the summit.
Sure, of the biggest mountain in Midgard. Frankly, the mountain Mimir is imprisoned on. Which that's how you get into the characters. As soon as you get up there, he reveals to you, sorry to break this to you, but the highest peak in all the lands exists in an entirely different realm.
The boy's mother is dead. She
wanted us to spread her ashes on the highest peak in all the realms.
Oh, then you've come to the wrong place, little brother. The highest peak in all the realms is not here in Midgard. It's in Jotunheim, realm of the giants.
No!
That could not be what she meant.
Take a look. This is the last known bridge to Jotunheim in all the realms. See that mountain? Looks like a giant's finger scraping the sky. That's the highest peak in all the realms. No here.
So, okay, and at that point, strangely enough, we're kind of in the middle, right?
Right.
Like, you think by the time you get to the point of the summit, everything you've done up to that point, and let's face it, by this point, you've drenched hours of this game into side quests because it's finally opened up.
Oh, that's a can of worms we got to get into.
Oh, yeah. So, So you get to the middle of the game, and you find out the summit is, in fact, not the highest point, and that you have to go to Jotunheim.
Yes, the Realm of the Giants.
Realm of the Giants, where that summit at Jotunheim is the tallest in all the realms. So you have to get there. Of course, Jotunheim's closed.
Of course. And it's just a simple matter of turning the door handle to get in there, right?
Of course. Right.
We get to go on so many adventures, finding one of Mimir's lost eyes.
Once again, flipping a temple. Done that in the past. Do it again.
You know what? I didn't even realize that. You're right. We flipped a temple once. Just do it again. Temple flip.
Which they make a joke about, which was great. What do you mean you could flip a temple?
Well, that bothered me when it happened in God of War 2. I was like, who is this guy? And then they realized he's actually a full god.
Yeah.
I appreciated Kratos' brute strength, but at the time we were flipping a temple into the swamp. I mean, can you just use a bridge? I mean, seriously.
Right. So, of course, you get into that, and I don't know, we're kind of moving through this quick because to me the ending is like, oh my god, this is the makings right here. So once you get the temple flipped, you get to Jotunheim, and you get to the summit, and it kind of just like, I mean, to me it was like and then poof, like, I mean, you were there.
Well, I do got to cut you off. We cut some big stuff there. A lot of the game is Kratos keeping his true past throughout the God of War series from his son Atreus.
Yeah.
They represent a lot of the caution Kratos has, shall we say, in taking him on a journey as you keep getting sick. Now, you don't really know what the sickness is. It's painted as he's a small, wiry, weak little son. So you assume, he's probably just gets an illness. Well, they start to tell you, I don't know that I fully agree with this, but it's storytelling. You got to let it go. That Atreus has an illness because Kratos has never told him who he really is, and that by proxy, that he's a god, and that by proxy, Atreus is a god as well. And so the whole his body knowing what he is, but his soul and his mind not knowing what he is clashes and gets him sick. And at some point, he has to travel to Helheim, or just hell, because of course he does. Every single God of War game, we have to climb out of hell, right?
Of course.
It's not a God of War game unless you go to hell and claw your way back up. So, but Freya, who we'll have to introduce the characters individually as we go on. You're right. Tells you your axe is not going to work in Helheim.
Oh my god.
Cue the greatest scene in the game. Second greatest.
This was the scene that, like, oh my god, you're right. She's like, it's not going to work in Helheim, right? So he's like, oh, I've got something that will. And I thought that moment, like, when you have that moment, he's like, I've got something that will. I kind of knew where we were going, right?
As for the dead, your frost axe will be useless. You'll need to find something else.
Then I must return home. Dig up a past I swore would stay buried.
Now, see, I did media blackout. There were people, apparently there was issues with, like, the ESRB, and of course, if you did the trophy hunting, people knew what was coming. I had no clue. I did media blackout on this stuff.
I did as well.
So you get in that boat from the witch's house back to your house,
That
home.
whole journey.
Oh my god, talk about it felt like forever. Of course, it felt like forever because you knew shit was about to get real.
Well, again, this is where they captured. I hate wanting to use the same words, but I'm just going to. They captured the emotional feel so perfectly. There are things going on around you. As Kratos gets in that little orange and blue flowery boat, by the way,
Yes.
and just has his head down and is just thinking to himself. I mean, you see Thor getting pissed. You see the thunder crackling all around you. I believe at that point you hear the horn summoning the world serpent again.
Yep.
And he's not reacting to it whatsoever. He's just got his mind where he's going, again in his little flower boat, at which point Athena, or a vision of Athena in his head, haunts him on the boat. It's one of those, like you said, you know it's coming. In fact, a lot of the game can be summed up once they get you on that path. If you know where you're going, you still want to see it happen anyway.
Yes.
You got a nice long boat trip to soak in everything that you did in the God of War games in the past, and that he was hoping as a character that he could put behind him, realizing you can't put any of this behind you.
And it all comes right there in front of you. I mean, it just faces you head on at that point. But yeah, I mean, you get there, you have Athena, and I love that moment before he gets her finally out of his head, and that pan, right? The pan that goes behind him, and she's there, and she says, "You're a monster," and it goes behind him, and you just hear him say, "I know." And then it gets to the other side.
He walks right through
gone.
her, and she's gone. But I'm no longer your monster.
Yes.
Also, you can pan. Did you do this? You can pan the camera a bit when you're in that boat. And I looked kind of upwards, and a group of Reavers kind of noticed that he's coming on the boat, so they go around back to ambush him. Yes. I loved it. I knew they were coming, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll beat some people up. This seems pretty heavy. In fact, they let you do that. You have to run into a few of the Reavers, and again, deal with the frustration that your axe doesn't even work on these guys, so that you have to kill a few of them by hand. Then you go dig out the old blades.
Go to the house.
And that secret compartment that they teased a few times, and he's putting the blades back on. And then, that was I can't even talk about the feeling I had when you come out and you've got both blades attached, and 10 of those stupid things swarm you, and you're just like, let's have lunch.
Right. But that was the thing, right? So I was in that moment where I knew it was happening, but I think I convinced myself prior. I'm like, okay, we're going to get the blades, but somehow we're going to have the dwarves turn the blades into a piece of the axe, right?
Okay.
When he wrapped them onto his arms, as much as they teased it and stuff, as much as I think I still knew it was coming, my jaw hit the floor. I mean, it was jaw, meet floor, make love. And I was there for that whole battle sequence you're talking about because I was just so excited.
Just drinking it all in.
Oh.
It was, for good reason, a lot of people say that was their absolute favorite part, one of the big climaxes of the whole game. Because it's like a message from the developers. Like, yeah, we made a whole new game. Yeah, you're in a whole new area, but you're still playing God of War. You're still the God of War. Did you really think we forgot you were the God of War?
And they hint at it still too, like with the urn, right? But just before the wine urn, and it's got him on it, the silhouette.
The game is masterful, and again, this could probably fall into character development. So masterful at the amount of self-referencing it has done throughout the series. The constant reminders he had of that's all right. We'll talk about that in a bit. We gotta keep on track here.
Right.
So you got your blades. You go through hell. You, for some stupid reason, you need the beating heart of the gatekeeper in order to cure your son's illness, because we need to kill a boss with these blades. That's what it amounts to.
Of course. Well, that's also what allows you. The beating heart's what allows you to control the hellwinds too. Which was a weird concept that you had to kill the boss to control the hellwinds, but...
Well, it goes back to, and this is something, again, we can touch on in a bit. The game very much knows it's a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls no punches, sometimes even laughing at itself for that. The amount of times the dwarves will just teleport into shops ahead of you in areas that you needed to painstakingly reach. And Kratos will even mention, you had a way around that obstacle. And, because the game is pretty much like, yeah, what do you want? I'm a video game. We need to put this shop out here for you, but I can't just let you teleport all around the world. Yet.
Yeah.
So, get hell, and then that's where things take a twist, is Kratos comes to realize he needs to tell his son who he is and who his son is. And I'm going to get really mad if we talk about this, so I'm going to let you cover this next part.
With where?
With what happens when Atreus finds out he is a god.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, I mean, okay. So, and again, this is going to go into character development a little bit with Atreus,
but
right?
It is plot.
So, yeah, you find out that he tells Atreus who he is, right? And on behest of the witch, right?
Yes.
She's like, this is only going to be temporary, you need to tell him. So he does. Which, again, great character development of Kratos, shows us he's a different guy than what we were used to. But anyways,
Great moment.
He tells his son, and Atreus is like, I'm part god. And he starts off pretty subtle about it, right? I mean, first thing he asks is, what can I do? Can I turn into a wolf?
The first thing he tells him, you are a god too. And as Kratos goes to pull the boat into the water, he goes, can I turn into an animal? And Kratos just freezing and going, can you turn into an animal?
I was born a god, and so were you. Boy, have you nothing to say?
Can I turn into an animal?
Can you turn into an animal?
Kratos was a strangely funny character for those moments.
Unintentionally.
Right, but that was a great moment. But anyway, so as you get further and further along, and Atreus comes to more and more terms with the fact that he's a god, he just becomes this arrogant
just
prick.
full of himself, just starts feeling his oats.
Oh.
And it's, it's a perfect, yeah, I know it's character development, but it's also part of the main plot.
Mm-hmm.
It reverses that dynamic for a bit. I
does.
spent so much time getting mad at Kratos and loving this very humble son of his. Then you got to see this like stupid 9-year-old little boy try to stomp around like he's in charge. And for once, I start feeling like, man, Kratos, I'm actually sympathetic to you during this.
I'm so sorry you have to tag this along with you.
Like,
As Tanner put it earlier, and I agree with him, I just wanted to throw my Leviathan axe at the kid at times.
oh man, you remember like the puppy kick you did in God of War 2 when you grappled one of the hellhounds, he just spiked him on the ground and punt him. Oh, I just wanted to do that. But
Oh, man.
you can't, of course.
Move it, or we'll pick up where he left off.
I'll kill you. No. He is beaten. Not worth killing.
He should pay for what he said about Mother.
I said no.
But we're gods. We can do whatever we want.
Hey, you think your daughter's gonna turn out with that kind of attitude at times?
Well, as soon as I tell her she's a god, it's
Yeah, it's inevitable. The
bound
game's
to
taught us.
happen, right? So in a fit of your son thinking he's ready to challenge everything. I mean, he's a god, right? Now he's unstoppable. He gets you and himself thrown back into hell. And this is the reaches of hell we were told we could never leave.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, Kratos grabs him, basically says, "What the hell is wrong with you? I am your father. You will listen to me from now on." And it's a little rushed in this regard, but kind of backs down, and we start heading towards a pleasurable path in the game again.
Yeah. Oh, because how did we get? We were fighting Baldur, right?
Yes. Who we forgot to mention a lot because we're just too excited.
We're way too excited about this game, so get ready for the jumps all around. But yeah, so we get thrown back into hell with Baldur, and of course, I'm gonna skip by because this is one of my favorite moments of the Baldur character development. So we finally get ourselves out of hell in a very cool way. I thought that was really cool. Somewhat frustrating running around, having to keep lighting those things on fire, but to make the boat float.
I was very bothered by that, by the way.
Were you?
Freya specifically said, "A land so cold, no fire can ignite there, and no fire can stay, magic or otherwise."
It is a land of unyielding cold. Fires cannot burn there, and no magic in all the 9 realms can create a blaze.
So what do? We light bonfires.
We light bonfires.
We light bonfires on the boat, and that carries us upward.
Yes, but
Don't
we're talking.
care,
Well, I know.
Video game.
I think their whole point was like the Chaos Blades are the only thing because they are blades forged by God.
It's we still lit fires in a place where no fire can exist.
Okay.
Like I said, don't care. Video game.
All that game is saying is the Greek gods are more powerful than the Norse gods, obviously, because the Greek god weaponry can light fires in a place that no Norse god magic can work.
Oh damn.
Throwdown. Anyway, so we get out of hell, and once we get out of hell, wait a minute. How the hell did Baldur get out of hell?
Because LOL, it's a video game. It's another one of those
True.
moments. It's yeah.
True, because nothing can escape, right? No gods other than Odin was able to escape those depths.
Right.
Anyways, so we get out of hell. We, of course, have another fight with Baldur on our way to Jotunheim. So, and I think that's kind of where the game kind of climaxes with this massive battle sort of thing, right? If I remember right. I'm to be entirely honest, I don't remember a whole lot from getting out of hell to the Baldur fight.
Third time, actually. We first fought Baldur, which we forgot to
The stranger in the beginning.
Right, with the stranger right at the beginning of the game. Then we fought him. Yeah, that was still a boss fight when he abducts Atreus and you wind up in hell a second time. That was a fight. Third fight was right when we come out of hell and try to get to... You're talking about that, right? When we try to get to Jotunheim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's the one with the mistletoe arrows.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the third fight with Baldur, actually.
Okay. So yeah, we're in the third fight, of course, and then the mistletoe arrows, which, again, another thing we completely forgot to mention, and I believe Tanner actually wrote it up, he sure did, on our board of things to talk about.
It's under character development, though.
That is true. That is true. So, We get the mistletoe arrows, and I guess we'll talk more about character development per our director's request. However, we have to talk about the ending.
Please, absolutely.
Okay.
This was controversial for a lot of people. So.
Yes. Okay, so you get to the ending. You're in Jotunheim. You walk up the stairs, and what do you find? It's completely dead.
There's no traces thus far. I mean, in my mind, I was like, this is only one room. But it's suggested that everything in Jotunheim's dead. All the giants that went there retreated there. The whole place is just empty.
It's empty, right? You don't know, are they dead? Did they go elsewhere? Which they actually bring up. But you know there's nothing there making any sound because Atreus, throughout the game, can hear voices.
Right.
And he hears nothing, which throws him completely off. So anyways, you get up, as you reach the top of the summit, you get into a little cavern-looking thing, and you find glyphs, pictures all over the walls. And they're all of Atreus and Kratos.
The story of, well, as Kratos puts it, the story of Atreus. Not necessarily, it's both of them, obviously. But he says, Dad, it's our story. They have depictions of all the important events you've done throughout the game, as if, it's been foretold. And as Kratos says, no, this is your story, not mine.
Right, because, I mean, the implication there is they're reading parts of it that we can't quite make out.
Right.
And, of course, Atreus gets very confused. Well, what does this mean? And that's when you find out that Atreus is not just part god.
His mother was a giant. So he is a half-breed. Half giant, half god. The Kratos also says part mortal. I'm not sure where that comes from. Maybe Kratos himself is part god, part mortal.
I believe Kratos is part god, part mortal. But I mean, in theory, the giants are mortal. But anyway,
everything can die anyway. So
right.
Gods have been dying all the time in these games. So
right, gods who are immortal die. So we get there, and now this is up to viewer discretion of what this means. There's that moment where they're looking at all the glyphs, and Kratos happens to pull back this tabard, right? And he sees one, and you see Kratos dying and Atreus there with him behind him.
And you see what looks like what could be interpreted as winds or souls or whatever coming out of both of their mouths.
Mm-hmm. So it makes you wonder. It really kind of brings up that point because at this point, Kratos has also admitted to Atreus that he killed his own father. So it makes you wonder, and all throughout the game, Atreus is always saying, well, why would anyone kill their own father?
I love that, by the way. Who would kill their own dad? Then you just hear,
So you get to that point where they go to the top, they see that, you don't know what that means. Let me ask you, what did you think that meant when you saw that?
That exact moment you're talking about?
Yes.
I didn't even try to decipher it. It was cryptic enough. People can try to claim they knew what it meant. It was foretelling Kratos' death. Of course it is. Somebody's going to die eventually. He's going to die eventually. I'm not going to pretend like I even had an idea. I'm just waiting with bated breath to find out in God of War 2.
Does this... It leads you to believe, is Atreus there when Kratos is killed, or does Atreus kill Kratos?
Or do they both die together?
True. So it's really kind of an interesting take, and there's a lot of talk about it. Anyways, you get to the top.
They did suggest that, actually. They foreshadowed when Baldur died, and Atreus had said, would you let me kill you? And Kratos had said, if it meant you would live. Mm-hmm. Which, as my wife was watching that, immediately said, do you think they're talking that's foreshadowing? And I'm like, I think that's foreshadowing in big flashing letters, personally.
The death of a child is not something a parent gets over easily.
But he was gonna kill her.
She would have died to see him live. Only a parent can understand.
So you'd let me kill you?
If it meant you would live. Yes.
But what a great moment of also showing how much Kratos has grown from what we knew as God of War 3.
Yes.
I would at that God of War 3, Kratos been like, nope, you're dead.
Exactly.
But at this point,
Kratos scream and then snap his neck.
Right. But at this point, then Kratos is like, yeah, means you live. Right. But anyway, so they get up there, they finally throw off. They spread the ashes. Well, hang on. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Let's talk about the view you get when you get to the top.
I was about to say, you jumped right to the right moment. That was the very next part.
But no, the view you get when you get to the top, okay. Right? We talk about how you hear nothing. And you get to the top and you look out.
And see all the dead giants laying on
all of them. All the dead giants.
Which raises the question, how'd they all die? Why did they all die?
I'm really hoping we get to explore that. I would love to know. But, yeah, so I just thought it was kind of like one of those moments. Because they built that, did they leave or did they die? And I thought it was kind of a nice way of doing it. And I I can't imagine that image, when you're up there looking, that image is much different from what the original concept art looked like.
Sure.
But anyways, so you spread the ashes, and then you have that moment. This moment, and I know some people hate this. Where Atreus turns to Kratos, right, and he says, so I get it. Mom knew the whole future, everything that was going to happen and will happen, but there's one thing I don't understand. Every time they talked about me, they referred to me as Loki.
My name was Loki.
So, I get that mother was a giant, which makes me part giant and part god.
And part mortal.
Right. I guess there's just one thing I don't understand. My name on the wall. The giants called me Loki?
I'm guilty that I rolled my eyes at that.
Really?
I mean, they're stretching here. You know, first Thor is a bloodthirsty maniac. Okay, fine. This is your world. This is your take on it. I get it. Plus, you need a boss fight. But Loki's gonna be your hero. Loki was the god of mischief and everything, and instead he's in your interpretation, he's the noble hero, or at least we think is gonna grow up to be the noble hero.
Right, but we don't know,
okay.
Right?
Well, we don't know, but we know.
But okay, so I love this for this moment. First of all, Thor was the warrior. Thor was bloodthirsty in Norse mythology.
Right.
Right? He really was.
But most people know Thor, the Marvel hero, the noble
Right.
hero.
Which is a different take on the actual Norse mythology. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm super into it. I've actually...
History professors over here.
Well, let me tell you, when I took Norse mythology 403. No, so I've recently...
Take Norse mythology 403?
No, I've actually just been
You're really disappointed.
I know. I've been listening to Audible books, like from Audible. I've been listening about Norse mythology recently, so we could have this discussion. I've learned very little because it's super complicated, and basically what you get told in everything you read or listen to is, look, it's always in debate as to what the actual translations are of these because it's all taken from poetry, and then in the middle of all this poetry, there was the Christianization of the pagan religion, which may or may not be where Baldur comes from because he is the noble one, the pure. Which is he's a very Christ-like character.
Sure.
Anyways, so you get to the point. I love the reveal of Loki.
Okay.
Personally, the reason I love the reveal of Loki is because of who Loki is. Right? He's the god of mischief. With that, what if the whole idea is though he becomes the god of mischief because of what the world makes him become? To me, there's so much more character potential there versus just saying, oh, Loki is the god of mischief.
No, you're right. And I'm going to embrace it. So that's part of this, is every time there's a decision that, first off, I can't say what I would have done in that situation with naming. Santa Monica Studios did not let me down in this. They have not. So part of this is going to be like, the kid is Loki. Like, you know what? Fine, the kid's Loki. I'm just going to have to ride this one out because they've done a great job so far, and I trust where they're going with this.
Mm-hmm. So I personally, I loved it. The other thing I love about that is after that, and he says, well, that's what your mother wanted to name you. And then he asks, well, and of course, this is all happening while credits roll now, as you're walking down the stairs. But the way in which they approach, he goes, well, how did you come up with Atreus? The story he tells about why he named Atreus with that guy who kept hope.
His friend, Atreus of Sparta. That was a really cool moment because it goes into... They could have told you this at the beginning of the game. They waited till the end to tell you how Atreus got his name in the first place. And I think there's a very good reason for that. That was a very... Okay. Ending, we spread Mother's ashes from the peak and we found out he's Loki. Let's start talking about characters. That's exactly what we wanted to talk about. The whole time we've been sitting up here fidgeting, like, when do we get to talk about our favorite characters?
Right.
They deliberately started out with no father-son relationship from Kratos. You are weak. You are dumb. I hate you. You suck. Ha ha ha. And then
in those words.
It just started going upwards, especially after he had to confront the illness of... And this is actually, I'm not kidding, this is a lyric in the direct translation of the overture. The theme is that the boy needs a father, not a god. So Kratos does have to learn how to just quit being what I call that testosterone monkey and be a dad. Raise this kid. And there were some very cheesy moments I didn't like leading up to. Like, they do it twice in the first hour or two. He and Atreus, Kratos and Atreus find a nice overlook, and Atreus looks over, and then you get, turn slightly this way.
Okay.
And Kratos goes,
wow, it's so beautiful out there, Dad. What?
I'm like, oh, come on. The hand reach out, and then, no, I can't touch my own son. That's not what men do. I'm like, that's cheesy and dumb. I didn't like that. But
I think again that comes though from his background.
I suppose. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I wanted him so badly to do it, and he does it at the end. Like,
and it makes it better. My inclination as a dad is to be nurturing from the get-go.
Right.
You are correct. He'd probably, in his culture, he's just going to coddle a weakling if he did something like that.
Right. See, when I have children, I plan on throwing them out there at an infant age to fight off bears. Well, that's how I'm going to raise them.
That's the only way they're going to learn how to fight bears.
That's right.
So, however, and I think this goes in with the other characters too. Kratos as a character has aged. And I don't mean, I'm not being funny like with a pun. He's obviously older, a little more wrinkled, has the beard. I don't know if you had the same effect. When I was watching promotional material for this, even from the very first trailer, as soon as I saw Kratos, I had a serious case of Mandela effect. I'm like, yep, there's Kratos. I look at him. He's got the good proportions. He looks like a warrior. He's aged a little bit, but he looks serious. Did you go back and look at any of the old art from God of War 1, 2, and 3? Kratos just looks like it's horrendous almost. And I'm not even going to... We loved it then, but now that I've played through God of War for PlayStation 4, I hate when they keep naming games the same names as the games of the past because they have to keep referencing them, but I went back and looked at footage from the old God of War games, and Kratos just looks silly. He literally just looks like a big, bulky, testosterone-like comic book character. And, oh, Terrence, please, I hope you're not watching this video because you get so mad. This new voice actor, Christopher Judge, who, the old voice actor was a little salty. He did not get to reprise Kratos. I'm very glad. Like, as soon as I heard him, I'm just like, oh, yeah, there's Kratos. There's that deep, bass, resonant, tough guy Kratos. If you ever go back and look at the old listen to the old God of War games, it's very, again, I'm going to say comic book again, delivered very comic-y, like, Zeus, this is the end of your days. And people are like, oh, that was so badass. I'm like, it was corny. I played it and I enjoyed it, but this God of War made me remember those past ones better than they actually were, than I remember them in the first place. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, I think it does. And, so, like, you're kind of talking about, obviously, the two different actors, and I think maybe that is something they wanted to get away from, right? I think that was the style of those God of Wars, obviously.
Actually, there was a reason for that. A lot of mocap, like cinematic mocap, was done for this game. Christopher Judge has a good build and stands much taller than, I can't think of the boy's name, but the other voice actor. The original voice actor is much shorter. From a voice acting, like to an animation standpoint, in the old God of War games, you could just read lines, and as long as you had a fitting voice, it worked. Since they wanted the characters to speak and walk like, the way they filmed it, they went with a new guy, a taller, more built guy, and that is why they changed voice actors.
Did not know that.
Or maybe they just didn't like him. But that was the story that they gave.
Speaking of, from the development and filming portion of this, one camera shot for 40 plus hours of a game. It's one singular camera shot.
It's part of what they were saying about going with the motion capture. He goes, we are never taking the camera off Kratos in this game. So we need somebody who fits the build and the role and the stature.
Yeah.
So you're right. Camera never. Well, that's not true. I mean, there's a couple things, but the camera does leave you a little bit when it has to focus on something else.
Where? It never. I
guess I can't cite you.
It'll rotate, right? But that's still one camera shot. Just because a camera pans, there's no cuts, right?
I kept thinking certainly when he goes falling down a hill or gets eaten by a dragon or swallowed, certainly we cut off of Kratos for a moment. Maybe we don't.
No, it follows the whole time. Okay. Well, even if like a dragon's mouth closes on him, right? Let's pretend that happens. I can't remember like it ever actually fully closed. No, well, okay, the one time he's in the dragon's mouth, it's behind you.
Yeah.
It is behind you the whole time, even in the dragon's mouth. But anyways.
You're right, it is never once do you leave the camera's view.
Right, it is one singular camera shot, though. That's the thing, too, with it.
No, sorry. When Atreus stabs Modi, Kratos isn't in view.
Kratos is not. The camera moves forward and then comes back. It's still one camera shot. There's no cuts.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes,
now. He knows film, I don't.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. From a videographer standpoint, what a nightmare, but what an incredible incredible experience.
It was wonderful. You're absolutely right.
When I was going to school to learn broadcast and videography and stuff, my favorite scenes are the singular camera. It's one camera, and the camera just moves through the tracks and moves seamlessly through the scene. And you just, to me, you feel so much a part of in it and a piece of it than when here's a cutscene and it doof, 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 you know.
And you know how hard that is to do, too.
Yes.
So, you're absolutely right.
Sorry. Okay.
No.
Back to character development. I had to bring that up
because
because for me that is.
We could sit here for literally several hours at a time. There's so many. I don't want to keep using this term. I don't think I've used it yet, but I know once I do, I'll keep using it. This game is so lovingly crafted. Oh. Every part of it, all your little side quests, of which there are 10 zillion of them, all of the little self-referential comments from the characters, the little bits of humor thrown in there. It's all very carefully done. I would be hard for me to pick out a part that was just thrown there because it could be. Mm-hmm. It was all very deliberate. It all had a purpose. If not to reference something from the past, to set the tone for something that happens in the future. All of it was tremendous. And I came out of this one loving the character again. Mm-hmm. Hated him in 3. Was so done with him in 3. Absolutely love him again in here. Because of the evolution of being the cold Spartan warrior to... He's still a warrior. He still wants his son to be strong, but he's a dad now. He's absolutely a father. And as a father, that meant so much to me. You got to understand, like I was talking about with the ending being controversial to people, a lot of people hated the fact that there was no super epic boss fight. You beat up Baldur for the 3rd time and finally snap his neck because he's going to kill his own mother, which that's its own mess we'll talk about in a bit here. But then the game does not end with a raging mountain with flames coming out of its mountain eyeballs coming at you. You walk up a hill, you spread the ashes, and you have a bonding moment with your son. I loved that. That was my perfect ending to this game.
I agree. And this game is so rare in today, right? It's a complete novel. That to me that's the best way to describe this game, right? It is a novel. Like you described the original ones, those were like a comic book, a manga or something, with less incense, but incest, not incense. But
there wasn't much incense either.
No, there wasn't. Well, I mean, in my house when I played them. But anyways,
too much information.
But this was a novel, and I thought it was crafted so well. I thought it was paced so well. It's a rare breed in what we see in today's video game industry. So I thought this was fantastic as far as that goes. But yeah, we're talking about character development. Somehow we went backward. How do we want to talk about character development? Jump to it, and now we're going backwards.
We're just going to just talk about whatever's interesting,
right?
Honestly, and which is so much of it. The game kept me guessing so many times. I kept thinking I had it figured out, and then it would go a whole different way. I kept thinking we were going to basically go through the Norse pantheon. Okay, obviously we started out fighting Baldur. Then we were going to have to fight Thor because he's right there. You never actually see Thor until the special ending cutscene. But you don't even see him. He's referenced. You see his path of destruction constantly. But every time I kept thinking, oh, they've put too much in this game. How could they make a second one, especially with the Valkyries and the side missions of that? I thought, you did Thor, you did Baldur, you did Thor's sons. We're gonna have to fight Odin and Freya, and you got all the Vikings. How can we possibly make a second one? It's because they didn't end up touching half of that.
Right.
I'd heard a rumors are rumors, that this game was actually 3 times as long, and they pared it down to what we have now.
So I've actually listened to, because Corey Bartlog, who is the director of Santa Monica Studios, he actually, he did a huge tour afterwards, and yes, the original script for this was something like 3 to 4 times longer. And then
it's insane to think about.
Well, and he said, whoa, hang on, guys, we are making a second game already. So they had to pare that down and say, okay, because they wanted to focus on that father-son journey. That is what was important to him in this, because it was the same thing we've been talking about. People hated Kratos for the most part. No one really cared for him by the end, and he wanted you to care about Kratos again. He wanted you to care about it, but it wasn't just about Kratos, right? Atreus wasn't some tool to get you to care about Kratos. This game was just as much about Atreus.
Right, absolutely. I cared about Atreus through the game. In fact, it was Atreus teaching his father just as much as his father was teaching him. Obviously, Atreus was learning combat and survival, but that actually, what he did for Kratos is something. And I'm going to have to speed along and talk about this goes into like when you meet Brock and Sindri, the dwarves with the two wildly different personalities. Mimir, the wisecracking head that follows you. Freya, the very sweet motherly type character who gets a little too motherly at the end and then goes a little crazy. All the characters existed in a way that so Kratos could be who he was. That character, that stiff upper lip, no cracking jokes, nothing funny to say. I just do what I do, and then we don't help anybody, and let's go. That only works because you had so many supporting and a lot of times funny characters. Almost everybody else, except for Freya, had humor in them. It's because it played off Kratos so well, and in a way, it made me realize that character Kratos is it's kind of been lost to time. You can have the stoic badass if you want, but you need a side dish to go with that because you know. When it's on, if you took, I also heard the rumor that Atreus is getting so complicated, they almost cut him from the game.
Yep.
There was no Atreus, no development, and just badass Kratos again. I'd have probably been bored really quickly with that.
Yeah.
But watching Kratos, who was right at sometimes, say, you can't help everybody. And Atreus say, no, we have to go help people. And that will lead to you getting attacked and, you know, some lesson in
which
being
I
naive.
Which I thought was interesting in the side quest, right? Of how you go along and, the first thing you get is, no, it's a waste of time. Why would we do that? And Atreus does something like, well, it's just who we are. It's what Mom would have done. That right there gets Kratos to go, fine.
Right.
What I love to see is you have this arc, though, of Kratos finally saying, like, okay, let's do it. But it's because you're going to learn a lesson from this. This isn't going to be just something for someone else. You're getting something out of this, too.
Right.
Which I thought was a really interesting thing to see. And again, it's one of those things that started shadowing fairly early on that maybe he can be a father.
Well, he got sarcastic a few times. You know, I am certain the spirit will be forthcoming and will get exactly what it promised us. And of course you don't. The spirit lashes out and attacks you.
Of course.
And he knew that. And Kratos actually cracks. This is probably a stretch. Kratos actually cracks a dad joke in the beginning of the game.
Go ahead.
Where he says, you know, we are hunting deer. Well, where are they? In the direction of deer.
I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me.
Yeah, which
I mean, never mind. It was just a dick comment to make to your son, but
right.
I got a chuckle.
You know, and the thing is, and this is one thing that I think that kind of, I don't want to say it bothered me, but I was confused by, right? So again, I keep referencing, well, Kratos' background was trained to be a warrior, trained to be a soldier. Why wasn't Kratos teaching his son to do that? Why was his mom teaching? Why was Atreus' mom? Why was Faye teaching him how to hunt? Why wasn't Kratos teaching him how to hunt? And what did Kratos do? Then,
lifted weights, screamed a lot,
right.
chopped firewood. I mean, we don't necessarily know who taught who what. We get a lot of assumptions, but obviously the game is not about Faye and son and husband. It's about Kratos and son. So,
well, I mean, but they say it like he goes, "Did your mother teach you to hunt?" Yeah, a little bit.
Well, Kratos is probably, I assume, especially up to this point, one of those "you're just going to slow me down, I'll do it myself" kind of types with Atreus. That's how I interpreted that. Again, that's you know, making your own decisions based on limited information, but that's kind of how I interpreted all of that.
Right. So obviously, I mean, we've talked a little bit about Kratos. Do you want to go more into depth about his character development as far as what you've seen, or?
I think I've kind of said everything that I'm sure I'll think of more later. But honestly, I was just so pleased. I wanted to see them let go of the just be a badass and say you're going to tear everybody's head off. And at one point, he himself has learned from his past actions. Sure, he had to cause Armageddon in Greece to do it. He admitted that, you know, just bloodlust and killing people and vengeance, it's not okay, it's not healthy, it's just going to lead to more destruction. My favorite scene in the game was right before you get the rune in Tyr's last trial, and Atreus goes to grab his knife that he had to feed into the grinder to save Kratos and realizes he doesn't have his knife anymore. So Kratos presents his knife to him and says, "I had 2 knives made when you were born. One for your mother, one for me." Mm-hmm. Or one that you will inherit, you know, basically when he becomes a man. And he teaches them, because, you know, anger can be power. Power comes from here, and it must be tempered from here. It's a very, very magnanimous fatherly lesson for a guy who at that point was basically like, am I doing better? Slightly.
Yeah.
All the time. After every battle. In fact, that was another thing. Atreus kept asking for approval after every battle. Am I getting better? Marginally. Like,
but you did. But I mean, there was a point where he did, like, after every battle, the big ones in the story, where he did give him a little bit more approval, a little bit more approval, and then Atreus got arrogant.
Give him an inch. He took a mile.
That's right. Typical kid, right? But yeah, so I think for me, Kratos, I think he became everything I wanted him to be.
Absolutely.
I definitely cared a lot more about him. It's funny though, because you talk about he obviously created Armageddon in Greece,
destroyed that whole world,
and it's so funny because with the Norse mythology, what creates Ragnarok, which is their Armageddon, is the killing of Baldur.
Oh yeah, we've started done it again.
But this time for completely different reasons. It wasn't bloodlust. He was trying to protect somebody else.
Well, in saying what he said, the cycle ends here. Actually, all he did was continue the cycle. The cycle of children killing their parents that he perpetuated, that's continuing to be perpetuated. Yeah, maybe he ended that, but he continued the cycle of vengeance. That endless cycle of now she's going to want vengeance on him. Now someone will want vengeance on him. There's also, everybody talks about how Freya went crazy. Freya was dumb. First of all, as a father, and a new father at that, there's no greater bond, no matter how crazy you think your children are, or how crazy your children think you are, or how they've gotten at you, that you want your children back. And secondly, you have to realize the dynamic there. When Atreus was dying, Freya helped bring him back to life. Mm-hmm. In turn, you killed her son. That had to feel like the biggest betrayal in the whole world to her. Even though
you yourself moments later will admit that if Atreus tried to kill him, you'd let him.
Right. You couldn't watch it happen. And Mimir made the comment, the world is far better with Freya in it than with Baldur being in it. Mm-hmm. It's not like that cycle would have ended there. As soon as you killed Freya, then you would have had to kill him anyway.
Right.
So, all right. So we've rambled on about Kratos a whole lot. Got to get some more of these characters in there.
Right. Okay. So we've obviously talked about Kratos. We've talked about Atreus.
Right.
We've talked about Baldur.
Touched on Baldur and Freya's relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Which, of course, goes along with their character development. The one thing we haven't talked about is how Freya... Well, no, you did mention how Freya's always there to kind of help you and stuff.
Very motherly figure throughout the entire game.
Right. So, obviously, you'd mentioned one of your favorite characters.
Sindri. Sindri's my favorite character. It's just the prissiest, wimpiest little just germaphobe of a dwarf builder.
Yeah, but can you put it down over there? That handle is...
No.
Filthy. Okay, then. I will just... Oh.
And, of course, you loved his brother Brock more. So that's kind of a thing we had as we were talking about this. You get the dwarves who serve as your item makers, merchants, sellers, collectors, even give you a few quests throughout the game. Mm-hmm. Wildly different personalities. Brock is a very in-your-face, blunt, rude, vulgar, ignoramus. Sindri is just considers himself very pomp and imperfect, and he's traveled the realms to get his techniques for smithing.
And to sum up who Brock is, you said the line earlier, and it's one of my favorite moments. Just cracks me up with what is it, right after he fixes the axe or whatever?
He improves your axe because you got his beast of burden to actually travel towards his shop.
Right, and then Atreus says, well, as repayment, we'll think of a name for your beast.
How about I name her fucking Gratitude? Hey, fucking Gratitude, come over here. I like it.
Does not pull any punches with his language.
No, he does not. But despite the fact that he's so abrasive, he's kind of soft. I mean, when he literally what?
When Atreus falls sick, pretty much they tease I can do stuff. I'm like, is Brock really going to become my new little helper for this mission? No, they don't do that, but. I kind of hoped for a moment, I'd be telling Brock to shoot at things and he'd tell me to just fuck off every time I hit the square button.
Don't tell me what to do.
That's kind of the switch we had with the ratings here. Word fuck appears plenty of times. I know we're going to blurt that out anyway.
Right.
F word appears plenty of times throughout the game. No boobies in this game this time. no iconic press circle to have sex minigame.
That's right. That's right. No, yeah. We definitely have kind of veered from that, which I thought was.
I appreciated that, honestly.
So I mean, it was definitely we didn't start off with that mini game though, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wondered. I wondered, and instead I got a mini game of chopping down a tree instead. So
a couple of chopping mini games. We chopped the dragon's tooth. We chopped the tree.
Yeah,
that got somewhere. Really did.
It really did. It was a good act.
But I love Sindri. Just all his little banter, all of the vomiting routine got old by the end of the game. I was a little tired of it by that point, but the fact that he doesn't even really want to touch your axe, he's carrying it. It was so funny to me. I don't know. I love that character. I think the actor nailed him.
Oh, he so
all
did.
The actors did a tremendous job.
They really did.
They did a great job with this.
But one of the moments I like about Sindri, and I think it was the moment that irritated the most about Atreus, was when Atreus just tells Sindri off, "We don't have time for you. We're gone."
Little people problems.
Right.
Sindri's like, "I'm not going to cry." And you know, that's another thing with how they crafted this game is, did you talk to Sindri or have him fix your gear right after that? For the short period of time where Atreus is still a little dick, Sindri is very upset with you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad you still find me useful when you find a shop. If there were, the game actually references, if you find lore pieces after you should have, the game references that you already did something. There was actually a little inscription on the side of Alfheim's wall about the eternal struggle for the light. I didn't read that when I first came through, so I read it later, and Atreus goes, "Huh, you think they're still going to fight over it after what we just did?" And he's like, "Of course they will. It's the cycle of life." I'm like, the game has dialogue written for if you did things out of order. It's it flowed so nicely, all of it.
Oh, it really
I can't
did.
say enough good things about my experience.
And that's one of my favorites, which is Mimir. Did I say that right?
Mimir.
Mimir, thank you. I was like, Mimir doesn't sound right. It sounds like a Muppet.
Mimo's an Italian guy, but
but Mimir, he was one of my personal favorites, right? And he's this head that's just attached to the back of your belt, and like you said, the trope's been done, but it was done so well with him. And the fact that he does like these great stories in the boat, and he gives you so much great background information. But the transition was seamless, right? Because you have one time where he's trying to tell you a story on land, and Kratos says, "That's enough, head. Not right now." Okay. And he's cool with that. And so then you get back in the boat, and he picks up stories seamlessly. You get on the land, you dock. He's like, "And we'll pick this up when, in a little bit."
You mentioned that if you interrupt him, it's not one of those frustrating moments where, "Oh, I just skipped a big dialogue and I'll never get to hear it again unless I go trundling YouTube for it." If you interrupt one of his stories, just tell you that story again later.
But he picks right up where he left off. It's that seamlessness of it again that you mentioned. It's fantastic.
I can't tell you how sad I was when I went through the tree realm and realized Mimir wasn't talking anymore. I had heard all of his stories.
I know,
like,
yes.
Aww.
Yep.
And there was one every time you went through there, and I was traveling like a fiend looking for things. So
I was too. Did you ever find yourself in moments though when you're in the boat instead of docking, where you just like sit out in the middle of the water?
I had to listen to the story.
Yes.
Of course I did. And I also love that he got his own little seat next to Atreus.
Yes.
Like Atreus would put him gingerly next to him, like this head has his own legitimate seat on the boat.
And he hands it to Kratos. Kratos whips him around to connect.
the ginger treatment versus the you're on my butt now head treatment.
But and again, useful in battle. If you have Atreus off doing something, he called out things coming from behind you.
That was actually very nice because we talked about the camera being over your shoulder this time and not fixated. The characters, now, it doesn't help if you're like me and you're blocking out all the sound because you're too busy hacking things, but the characters will call out where threats are coming from. So you should have ample time to respond to them. Or it is a video game, so sometimes you'll get hit and then they'll say, "Look out!" I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Very,
got my back."
Very Robin Hood Men in Tights. Watch my back. Your back's been punched twice.
Watch my back! Your back just got punched twice. Thank you.
Mimir watches my back quite well.
But yeah, he was one of my favorites, I think, just from the storytelling aspect. I just really enjoyed it, and I mentioned earlier his charm and wit and stuff like that, his character. A couple times, and I don't know much about Mimir in Norse mythology, and it's one of the characters I keep meaning to look up, but there was a couple times when he talked, things he would say very, very much struck me as being like Oberon.
Okay.
Like he struck me as an Oberon. And I feel like there was one story, I don't remember it exactly now, where he kind of referenced something along that of being, or working for King of the Fairies. I can't remember which it was. But I found him to be a very, very interesting character, really enjoyed him. Love the history lessons he gave us in the game, and just kind of put everything in context. So he was one of my favorites for sure. But, I mean, like you said, it really... you kind of know your favorite character, but you love everything about all the characters. They're such great characters. The development of them is so wonderful. And again, you've got that development of both Kratos and Atreus. There wasn't like one or the other. And can we talk about Atreus' gameplay for a little bit? He wasn't like a completely useless character.
No, I was worried about that, especially because when you first get him, his bow hits for approximately 1 damage at a time. But you start leveling him up, and honestly, there were fights I would just block and let Atreus kill everything. Seriously. The lightning arrows that bounce between enemies, super useful. The stun arrows for the big guys I was just annoyed with.
Well, I think I told you about them. I always call them the wizards. They always remind me of the wizards from Destiny. The floaty dudes.
The Revenants?
Yes, thank you.
The ones I couldn't figure out how to kill. Maybe the game describes it to me, but I must have missed that part. I was sitting there for 20 minutes, just hacking at a Revenant, having it disappear, going, what am I? Like that's where I talked about. I just had Atreus shoot it to death. That took approximately half an hour because he's dealing like 1 damage at a time at that point in the game. Not my most fun moment.
Right, no, and it's totally frustrating, and they don't tell you, right? That was one of those where I think the whole idea of the game with the runes and the equipment and stuff is it's all about figuring out how you actually have to go about that and how you have to deal with it. But yeah, I mean, I discovered pretty quickly the best thing to do is obviously those stun arrows, run in with your fist, and then press O and rip them apart. But just a very, very well done game overall. So we kind of talked briefly about this, and again, we don't do rankings, right?
Of course not.
But where does this game fall for you?
It's probably my new favorite of all time. I'm not exaggerating with that. It had everything I wanted. It had just the little distractions, all the near chests, all the little collectibles. It even had things that irritate me, like there are 51 of the stupid green ravens you can find and hit. I don't like stuff like that, but I didn't even mind it this time around. I think I probably didn't mind it because there's usually a checklist and individual little areas you highlight, letting you know there's one over here you missed, there's 2 over here that you missed. Not like most games where it's like, you got 49 out of 50. There's 2 floating around somewhere in the 6 worlds that you can visit. So, I think I appreciate that aspect of it. I can't say enough. Story-wise, ending, watching a father and son have a good relationship. Probably my favorite game of all time.
Yeah,
I'm not exaggerating.
I'm right there with you. This is easily my, and we're in freaking May, June. This is my game of the year. The bar has been set so high that like I don't know how you're gonna come close to this. And it's for narrative games coming out. I mean, you have Detroit Become Human, which comes out like right on the tail end of us releasing this. Now, granted, that's a very heavy rain, all narrative style, but still, I mean, the actual storytelling and character development aspect. Good luck to about anything else trying to catch up to this, because this and the combat. I love the combat. I thought it was beautifully well done. One of my favorite things is throwing the axe and getting to recall it. No boomerang effect. I have control. And
totally get to mold near that hammer. You throw it, it comes back.
Oh, and the fact that like the sound is there, the thump, and the vibration, just the one shake of the controller every time it happens was so beautifully crafted.
Executioner's Cleave is my favorite move in the whole game. Just hacking things apart. I saw a lot of complaints that the gore was toned down from the other games. It wasn't visceral enough. I don't know that I agree.
I agree with you. I don't agree with them.
They say well, it's not like the other humans we killed. First of all, you killed very few humans in any of the God of War games. There seems to be less blood. A lot of enemies tend to have like fire or magma or something for blood, or just blue jelly blood. But have you ever grapple killed one of the werewolves? Okay, I don't want to hear anything about how this game isn't gory.
Well,
how you wrap their jaw and pull them apart all the way down to their groin. It's a little shaken by that one. The first time I did it, felt pretty bad for that wolf.
And you do it to all those like wolf-type creatures, even the ones that like come out of the ground. Those are my most annoying ones. Oh my God, get them out of here! Especially when you're running around the mist area.
Right. That's actually, I found myself, I won't lie, by the time I finished the game, there were a couple enemies I was done with. I didn't love everything about the game. It's probably my favorite game of all time, but there's still things I disliked. Like the Dark Elves, and I knew the name for them, but it's long and confusing. Like you said, the burrowing lizards. If I never saw another one of those again, I'd just be perfectly happy.
Yeah.
They're completely ignorant and just terrible. I hated them.
Right.
I'm sure somebody loved them. I did not. And I talked about this with you personally earlier, the item system. I did not like the item system. It was based more on whatever that power level fixated on the item piece it was itself, not necessarily on the stats or how useful the effect was. Mm-hmm. Knowing what I know about games, I find the effect of like percent-based resistance to elements, to elemental damage, really useful. But you know, in this game, it may be stuck on a level 4 piece of armor. So if you keep trying to wear that, you're just not going to be very strong throughout the game.
Right, even if that gives you the best stats. No, I totally see where you're coming from. Now, and the problem is everything kind of scaled with you, which is nice, but at the same time, it's frustrating like that, right? Because now you find a chest that you should have actually found earlier on. There's no stats on it. It's just now a level 8 piece of gear. And you're like, well, why would I want to put that on?
And it's typically better than something that had a lot of stats on it, but is like the Valkyries, and I wondered if the gear was scaling with me, because the Valkyries are the toughest hidden bosses in the game. But one of them is dropping a level 4 rune that is useless for me to equip once I have to be at level 8.
So that was the most frustrating part to me too, right? Is the gear drop with those. The idea is there's supposed to be something that you can only face once you've completed the game. Which to a certain degree, okay, fine.
I wouldn't say completed the game. I killed my first Valkyrie at level 4.
Well, okay. Well, I did
which
too.
hence the level 4 rune that I found, I suppose.
Right, but the thing is you killed the last, right? With the Valkyrie Queen?
I beat Sigrun, yeah.
Okay. But her gear wasn't as good as what I was wearing.
But
that was the hardest fight I did.
That was the hardest fight in the game. That was your typical. There are a lot of RPG elements in this game. That was your typical hidden RPG boss that's tougher than the actual boss. Sigrun was not only super annoying, she drops an item that. Why would I want this? I don't see a reason why after doing that tremendously hard boss fight, which means there's nothing in the game left to challenge me, why I got an item that I would have liked to use since the beginning of the game, which was the item that gives you the super throw on your axe.
Right.
The game is begging for a new game plus, and I've heard rumors that they're thinking of coming out with one, but well, they better. I mean, I want to run around with this stuff that I found.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too for me, right? Is the Valkyrie stuff is they're supposed to be the hardest fights. That is the hardest boss. Why on earth is that gear not as good as the stuff I got from the Mist area?
I wanted to wear the Valkyrie gear so badly. I gotta admit, I have not platinumed it yet. There was a certain point where I just wanted to finish the game and I didn't want to complete any more Muspelheim challenges, and if I did one more lap around Niflheim, I was going to kill myself, honestly. I won't lie. Niflheim, it was cool. The first time I successfully completed a lap around Niflheim, I was done with it. In fact, I was really done with it by the time I killed the Valkyrie. Which actually, that was the easiest of the Valkyries I'd fought. I was very happy with that.
Right,
I thought, oh boy,
makes sense.
I have to fight her with this death aura going on. But, in fact, Sigrun, I hit it just because she had every one of their attacks, and she could whip any one of them out at a random moment.
Can I just say the most annoying attack is the one where they dart into the air and then come down and stomp on your face?
Because half the time you dodge it and they seem to land on you anyway.
Yes!
Or sometimes you forget to dodge and they just land next to you and miss you.
Right, that was the most... So, I'll be honest. So, I played the game on hard.
Okay.
Whole game, all the way through hard, had to drop down to normal to beat her. I had to. I kept count. I faced her 27 times on hard before I finally said, screw this, because I wanted platinum this game.
Right.
I am 2 trophies away. I am two birds.
2 birds.
And, like, 1 treasure map. That's it. That's what I have left to do.
I'm taking a small break from that sort of thing, because I powered through the game. I absorbed it for like a week, and I'm not taking a break to play other things now. And
yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is obviously, like, I have my MLG team that, like, we kind of need to get practice in because the new season starts soon for Rainbow Six Siege. So, anyways, which I'm going to do, since I want to kind of wrap us up anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other stuff we have going on right now out of Valley Studios. So, obviously, we've got Ramblers. We're super glad if you guys have stuck with us this long and powered through this, as we have definitely rambled. We are true to our name.
Absolutely.
We are very true. So, again, I mentioned earlier, you can find us on Patreon, where you can donate, become part of our community. For the 20-plus donators, you are able to get access to the special video, which includes our first actual review, which was a review of the Avengers Infinity War. Along with that, obviously Valley Studios is working on a ton of really cool projects. We've got not only RAMblers, but we've got Chucky Chicken in the works, which is a lot of fun. Very, very different from what we do.
Very different.
But very family-oriented. So, and I know a lot of people who watch us, they have families and stuff. So it's definitely something to check out. And the other thing we have going on is Valley Studios Gaming. That's our MLG team. We have changed it from TWAT. Trained Weapons.
A good change, I think.
Trained Weapons and Assault Tactics. It was an acronym. But I'm pretty sure doing a post on Twitter about, hey, make sure you check out our TWAT stream is what got me officially suspended for life. So I don't have a Twitter account. So anyways, we changed our name to Valley Studios Gaming, and so you can check us out. We have streamers who are supposed to be streaming every Friday. I have to get on Steven about that because he forgets all the time. And then Tanner and I are going to be releasing a podcast. Of course, we'll do a video concept of it like this one, but you aren't going to see him and I. You're just going to see gameplay of it, which is our Valley Studios Gamecast. It is all Siege related because that is what our MLG team is kind of connected to.
If you haven't seen them yet, you'll love them, I promise.
Yeah, we're not good at the game. We're just entertaining to watch. So make sure you're checking all that stuff out. We have a lot of stuff going on our channel. We're really excited. But again, head to that Patreon page if you get the chance, because obviously your support makes a lot of this easier, i.e. more camera batteries. Okay, final verdict of the game. So for me, like I said, it's my game of the year. Probably one of my all-time favorite games, like you said. If you have not played this game, go out and get it. I know some people are probably like, oh, I'll go out and rent it and try it. Sure, if that works for you, good luck getting everything done in this game in a 3-day rental even.
Renting it was a mistake. I rented it for a week, and I had to put down, first of all, I had to put down a $20 deposit on the game to rent it. So it was about half the cost of the game. Barely scratched it in that time. I just went out and bought a copy right afterwards. I don't say this often, but you are missing out if you do not play this and you have any inclination towards the God of War series. Don't sleep on it.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you haven't caught on, it does have its faults, but they are little faults compared to the major accomplishments of this game.
Agreed.
So, yeah, make sure you definitely get out there and get it checked up. We're really excited to be back with you guys, and we hope you stay tuned, and we'll see you next week as we release every Sunday.
Thank you very much.